The sun burned high above the endless desert. Golden waves of sand stretched in every direction, hot and merciless. In the middle of this wasteland lay a figure, half buried, half broken, yet alive. She was not human, though from a distance she almost looked like one. Her skin was pale with a faint glow, her silver hair tangled with dust, and her armor cracked from battle scars. She was the alien princess, once heir to a throne of power, now abandoned like nothing more than a prisoner. Her people had left her here to die in silence under the burning sky. The princess opened her eyes slowly, her lips dry, her throat aching for water. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. The desert's heat pushed her down again. Still, her pride did not allow her to crawl. She was raised as royalty, taught never to show weakness, even when her life was hanging by a thread. From far away, 3 humans watched her through cracked lenses of old desert goggles. They were explorers, scavengers of lost places, men and women who searched for forgotten ruins and alien tech buried in the sand. The leader of the group, Captain Harris, frowned as he saw the strange figure struggling against the heat. "She's not one of us," he whispered to his second-in-command. "She could be dangerous," came the reply. But none of them could ignore what they saw. Someone was dying, someone who might be friend or enemy or something worse. The humans argued in low voices. Some said leave her. She was alien, and nothing good ever came from crossing paths with her kind. Others said to help, for no creature deserved to die in such a cruel way. Finally, Harris made the choice, his voice firm. "We give her water," he said, "but we keep our guard up." The princess saw them approach, her glowing eyes narrowing. Humans, she thought bitterly, small and fragile, scavengers who lived in the shadow of greater species. Yet when one of them held out a flask of water, her body betrayed her pride. Her hand snatched it, and she drank deeply, each drop pulling her back from the edge of death. But she did not say thank you. She only stared at them with the cold silence of a queen without a kingdom. "Who are you?" Harris asked, but she did not answer. Instead, she turned her face toward the horizon, where the wind began to rise. The desert was changing, the air heavy with warning. A storm was coming. Dark clouds of sand were rolling fast, swallowing the sky. The humans cursed under their breath. A desert storm meant death for anyone caught without shelter. Already, the wind howled, lifting sharp grains that cut at their skin. Harris shouted above the roar, "We need cover now." But the princess did not move. She stood tall against the storm, as if daring the desert itself to destroy her. For a moment, Harris wondered if she was mad or simply proud beyond reason. He grabbed her arm, pulling her with the group toward a rocky outcrop that offered a little protection. She resisted, but the wind grew too strong even for her, and at last she allowed herself to be led. Inside the shelter of stone, they crouched together, the storm screaming outside like a beast of fire and sand. In that narrow space, humans and aliens sat side by side, yet worlds apart. Every glance was filled with suspicion, every silence heavy with questions. The princess finally spoke, her voice low but sharp. "My people abandoned me," she said. "They chose exile over mercy." Her words carried no sadness, only anger and pride. The humans exchanged uneasy looks. An alien princess cast away by her own kind. What could it mean? Why was she left to die? And what danger followed her across the desert? The storm raged for hours, but in the shadows of that rocky cave, a fragile alliance was born. Humans who lived by survival, and an alien princess who refused to bow. For now, they needed each other, but the desert was only the beginning of their struggle. Ahead waited betrayal, desire, and a test of honor that would decide the fate of more than just their lives. The wind howled louder, shaking the ground beneath them, and in the silence between thunder and sand, each of them wondered the same question. Was this meeting chance or destiny? When the desert storm finally calmed, the world outside the rocky shelter looked like a battlefield. The sand had swallowed every track, every path, every clue of where they had come from. The humans brushed the dust from their faces, coughing, while the alien princess rose with quiet grace. Even in weakness, she moved with the presence of someone who had been born to rule. Her armor cracked and broken, her hair tangled with sand, yet her eyes still burned like fire. Captain Harris studied her carefully, his instincts whispering danger. He had seen soldiers, mercenaries, and criminals across half the wastelands of Earth and beyond. But this alien princess was different. She was proud, untouchable, yet standing among them because she had no choice. He tightened his grip on his weapon. He had offered her water, saved her from the storm, but trust was another thing entirely. "Where do you come from?" Harris asked again, his voice steady. The princess looked at him as if he were a child trying to demand answers from a queen. "My home is not for your kind," she said coldly. Her words cut deep, but Harris did not flinch. "Then tell me why you're here, dying alone in the desert," he pressed. Her silence spoke louder than any truth. Finally, she gave him nothing but a whisper: "Exile." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. Exile meant crime, shame, betrayal, or something even darker. If her own people had cast her out, then what hope did they have trusting her? Yet there she was, standing alive because of their mercy. For a long moment, no one spoke. The desert around them groaned with shifting winds, as if listening to their doubts. One of the younger explorers, Mason, broke the silence. "She's hiding something," he muttered, "and if she's dangerous, we'll be the ones to pay the price." But his sister, Clara, shook her head. "She would already be dead if we left her, and maybe we need her as much as she needs us." The argument grew sharp, voices clashing in the hot air, humans torn between fear and compassion. The princess stood in the middle of it all, silent, as if watching mortals fight over scraps of honor. When she finally spoke, her voice silenced them. "You speak of danger," she said, "but you do not know danger until you have faced the beasts of my people, the warriors who would kill for pride, the hunters who chase the weak to prove their strength." Her eyes scanned each human face, one by one. "You think me helpless, yet even in exile, I am more than you will ever be." Her pride struck like a blade, and Mason's hand went to his weapon, but Harris raised his arm to stop him. "Enough," Harris said. "We don't have to like each other, but out here, survival is all that matters." The wind picked up again, carrying the warning of another storm far in the distance. The desert was alive, restless, and unforgiving. The group began to move, searching for ruins that might give them shelter and answers. The princess walked among them, every step heavy with suspicion. Sometimes she walked ahead, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. Other times she slowed, listening to the humans argue quietly behind her. Trust was thin, but necessity bound them together like chains. By nightfall, they found the remnants of an old stone arch half buried in sand. Strange markings glowed faintly under the moonlight, markings that did not belong to humans. The princess froze at the sight, her breath catching in her chest. "This place," she whispered, "it was built before even my ancestors claimed the stars." The humans looked at each other, uncertain whether to believe her. But Clara stepped forward, her voice soft. "If this is your past, then maybe it is our future too." The princess touched the markings, her fingers trembling for the first time. For all her pride, there was fear in her eyes. She knew what these ruins meant, and she knew what secrets they still held, but she would not share them easily. Instead, she turned her back to the wall and faced the humans. "If you want to live," she said, "you will follow me, but understand this. I will not bow to you, and I will not beg for your help." Harris stepped closer, standing eye to eye with her. "Then we'll walk together," he said firmly, "not as master and slave, not as ruler and subject, but as survivors." For the first time, the princess's cold mask cracked, just for a heartbeat. Her lips curved into something close to a smile, sharp, dangerous, but real. The desert night grew colder, the stars burning above like frozen fire. In the distance, the sound of howls echoed across the dunes. Not human, not friendly. The humans tightened their grips on weapons, their nerves on edge. The princess's eyes glowed faintly in the starlight. She did not fear the howls. Instead, she whispered in her ancient tongue, "Let them come." And so the fragile alliance was sealed not by trust, not by loyalty, but by survival. An alien princess cast OU, T by her people, and humans who walked a line between desire and honor. The desert would test them, the ruins would challenge them, and the shadows ahead would demand a price. But for this night, they stood together, fragile but unbroken, and destiny, silent and patient, waited just beyond the horizon. The night was restless. The wind carried faint howls across the dunes, rising and fading like whispers of ghosts. The humans tried to sleep in shifts, guarding the ruined arch where they had taken shelter. But the alien princess did not close her eyes. She stood like a statue under the stars, her gaze fixed on the glowing markings carved into the ancient stone. Captain Harris noticed her silence. He approached carefully, his boots crunching on the sand. "You recognize this place," he said, not as a question, but as a truth. The princess tilted her head slightly, her silver hair catching the starlight. "My people tell stories of the first temples," she whispered, "built by hands not our own, older than my empire, older even than your species' memory." Her words made Harris uneasy. It was not the way she said them, but the weight behind them, as if the desert itself was listening. At dawn, they moved deeper into the ruins. The sand shifted under their feet, revealing broken stairways that led into darkness. The humans hesitated, their flashlights trembling in their hands. Mason cursed under his breath. "This is suicide." But Clara placed a hand on his arm. "If she knows the way, we follow, or we die out here." The princess did not wait for their fear. She descended first, her steps sure, her posture proud, as if she had walked this path in another life. Inside, the air was cold, a strange relief from the burning desert. Walls lined with forgotten carvings stretched into the dark. Symbols glowed faintly as they passed, reacting to the princess's presence. The humans stared in awe, realizing this place was alive. "Why are the walls glowing?" Clara asked softly. The princess did not answer at once. Finally, she spoke, "Because this place knows me." Deeper still they walked, until they reached a chamber shaped like a circle. In the center stood a black stone altar, smooth and polished, untouched by time. On its surface lay fragments of weapons, shards of armor, and bones too large to be human. The air vibrated with a quiet hum. The princess stepped forward, placing her hand on the altar. For a moment, the chamber shivered, the glow intensifying. "Do not touch that." Mason snapped, raising his rifle. But Harris stopped him again, his voice low. "Wait." The princess closed her eyes, and when she spoke again, her words were not only for them, but for the chamber itself. "My exile brought me here for a reason," she said. "This place holds a memory, and now it is awake." The walls pulsed, and images flickered across them. Shadows of war, armies of alien warriors clashing under burning skies, human figures standing at their side. The explorers froze, breathless. "What the hell is this?" Mason whispered. "It's history," the princess said, her voice trembling though she tried to hide it. "Your kind and mine have met before." Shock rippled through the group. Humans and aliens, fighting together, long before Earth had believed in life among the stars. Clara's voice shook. "If that's true, why don't we know? Why is this hidden?" The princess lowered her head, her voice bitter. "Because truth is dangerous. Truth gives power to those who are not meant to rule." The chamber grew darker, the glow dimming as if the ruins had given all they could. But one symbol remained burning bright, a mark shaped like fire and blade. The princess traced it with her hand, her expression sharp. "This is the mark of the trial," she said. "The same trial my people once used to judge kings and queens, warriors and betrayers, the same trial they cast me into by leaving me here. Harris frowned, piecing her words together. They left you to survive this, he said slowly, not just the desert, but whatever waits in here. The princess turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly. And now you are part of it, she whispered. Your fate is tied to mine. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling, cracks split across the altar. From the shadows of the chamber, shapes began to move. Stone guardians, their bodies heavy with age, their eyes glowing with the same ancient light as the walls. Weapons formed from sand and stone clutched in their hands. They were not alive, yet they were not dead either, and they had only one purpose: to test those who dared to enter. The humans raised their rifles, panic sparking in their eyes. But Harris steadied his aim, his voice firm, "Hold your ground." The princess stood taller, her lips curving into a fierce smile. "This is the beginning," she said. "The desert gave you a chance to leave me behind, but you chose to follow." Her voice echoed against the stone. "Now you will see why my people feared me, why they cast me out, and why only honor will let you live." The guardians stepped forward, their heavy forms shaking the chamber. The humans tightened their grips on their weapons, their hearts pounding with fear, and the alien princess raised her hand, the glow of the ruins flaring in answer. The test had begun, and the secrets of the sand would not let them leave without a price. The stone guardians marched forward with slow, crushing steps. Each movement echoed like thunder inside the chamber, shaking the bones of every human standing there. Captain Harris gave a sharp signal, and rifles lifted into firing position. The humans fired, bright flashes cutting through the dark, bullets striking stone. But the guardians did not fall. The ancient armor that coated their bodies absorbed the damage, sparks flying with every hit. Clara gasped, pulling Mason back as one of the guardians swung its heavy blade down. The stone cracked where they had been standing, sharp fragments flying across the chamber. Mason cursed under his breath. "We can't stop them." But the alien princess moved forward, her hand glowing with strange energy. The ruins themselves seemed to answer her, the walls pulsing faintly. With one sharp cry, she raised her palm, and light burst from the markings on the floor. The guardians paused, their weapons frozen mid-swing. It was as if they were waiting for her command. "They recognize me," she said coldly, her voice steady even in the chaos. "This place was built for rulers, and I am still a daughter of the throne." The humans lowered their weapons slightly, staring at her in awe and suspicion. Even Harris, who trusted nothing too easily, felt a chill run through him. The power she carried was undeniable, but so was the danger. The guardians stepped back, returning to the shadows as if dismissed. The chamber fell silent again, only the sound of heavy breathing echoing among the ruins. The humans exchanged nervous glances. For the first time, Mason said what all of them were thinking. She could control them, he whispered. She could control all of this, and we're just handing her the key. The words dug deep into the group, planting seeds of fear and desire. They had seen alien technology before, but never something alive, something that responded to a single will. If the princess truly commanded it, she could reshape the desert, control armies, or bring destruction. Clara shook her head, her voice low. "She saved us." But Mason snapped back, where she showed us just enough power to make us obey. The princess ignored them, her eyes fixed on the glowing altar. She pressed her hand against the mark of the trial again. The ruins answered her touch with a low hum, as if alive. "You do not understand," she said. "This place is not a gift. It is a test, and the test will break those who are weak." Her gaze turned to the humans, sharp as blades. "You came here thinking survival was enough, but survival is only the first step." The humans argued again, their voices sharp. Some wanted to leave, to escape before the ruins claimed them too. Others wanted to push forward, hungry for the power they had just witnessed. Mason's eyes shone with greed as he stepped closer to the altar. If she can use this, then so can we, he muttered. He reached out, his fingers brushing the black stone. The chamber shook violently, a crack of energy flashing across the walls. The princess spun toward him, fury flashing in her eyes. "Fool!" she shouted. "You do not touch what you cannot command." The hum turned into a roar, the air vibrating so fiercely that the humans covered their ears. Shadows formed again, guardians crawling from the walls, this time more fierce, more alive. Mason fell back, terror on his face. The princess raised her hand, but this time the guardians did not obey. Her eyes widened in shock. "They listen only to honor," she whispered, "and yours has been stained." The humans scrambled to form a defensive line. Harris barked orders, pulling them together. Every shot echoed, every step shook the floor. But in the chaos, Clara noticed something. The guardians ignored her when she shielded Mason, their glowing eyes flickering as if recognizing her act of loyalty. "They're testing us," she cried. "They don't fight for blood. They fight for what we choose." The princess turned to her sharply, her expression unreadable. For the first time, human and alien understood the same truth. This was not about strength, not about weapons, but about the choices they made, and choices were dangerous. When the fight ended, only silence remained. The guardians faded back into the walls, leaving scars across the chamber floor. Mason sat against the stone, trembling, guilt heavy in his eyes. Harris glared at him, but said nothing. The princess stood tall once again, but her face was different now, her pride shadowed by something deeper. She looked at the humans and said quietly, "Now I see why the desert brought you to me." But even as she spoke, Mason's eyes drifted back toward the altar. Desire burned in him still, a hunger that honor could not quench. The fragile alliance was beginning to fracture. The desert had revealed power, and power had begun to divide them. The desert swallowed the ruins in silence as the group stepped back into the fading sunlight. Hours inside, the ancient chambers had drained them, yet their minds burned with everything they had seen. The sky was painted red with the last fire of day, shadows long and sharp across the dunes. The humans moved together, but their unity had cracks now, hairline fractures ready to break. And at the center of it all was Mason, walking slower, his eyes still haunted by the altar and the power he had touched. Captain Harris kept his watchful eye on him. He had led soldiers before. He had seen greed twist good men into enemies. He could feel the weight of betrayal already forming, though Mason had not spoken it aloud. Beside him, Clara tried to keep the peace, her voice calm, her presence steady. But even she could not ignore the way Mason's gaze lingered on the princess whenever her back was turned. It was not only fear, it was desire, both for her and for what she carried. The alien princess walked ahead, her silver hair glinting against the darkening horizon. She had not spoken much since the trial beneath the ruins. Her silence was not weakness, it was calculation. She had seen the greed in Mason's eyes, the doubts in the others, and even the hesitation in Harris. They were fragile creatures, these humans, yet something about them unsettled her. They had survived the desert with her, stood against guardians built to test kings, and still they moved forward. Perhaps there was more to them than she had believed, but perhaps not. By dusk, they reached a ridge overlooking a narrow canyon. A decision had to be made: cross through the canyon at night, or wait until morning. The humans argued quietly, their voices sharp in the cold air. The princess listened, but did not join, instead watching the horizon with sharp eyes. Far away, the desert shifted unnaturally, as if something else was moving beneath the sand. She knew danger was coming, but the humans were too busy arguing about safety to see it. When the camp was set, Harris divided the night watch. The fire burned low, throwing weak light across the canyon walls. Clara sat near her brother, whispering to him to let go of the temptation. But Mason's eyes burned brighter with every word. "Don't you see?" he hissed. "She isn't just some exile. She's a weapon, a key to power no human has ever held. Clara shook her head, her eyes hard, and power like that destroys whoever tries to claim it. But Mason was already slipping away from her voice. His hand brushed the rifle at his side, his thoughts dark. And in that moment, the desert gave him an answer. From the shadows, a sound rose, low, guttural, and hungry. Eyes gleamed at the edge of the firelight, dozens of them, circling. Creatures of the sand, lean and twisted, drawn to the scent of blood and fire. The humans leapt to their feet, rifles raised. The princess stood with them, her glowing eyes scanning the darkness. They hunt in packs, she warned, her voice calm. They will not stop until one side is dead. The beasts struck, bursting from the shadows with snarls that echoed off the stone. Gunfire ripped through the night, flashes of light tearing into the creatures. The desert became chaos. Sand kicked high, blades of teeth clashing with steel and fire. Harris barked orders, holding the line. Clara dragged Mason back from a lunging beast, her rifle kicking against her shoulder. The princess fought with bare hands, her strength unnatural, each strike dropping a beast into the sand. But still they kept coming. In the madness, Mason saw his chance. While the others fought for their lives, he slipped away from the circle of firelight, moving toward the princess's pack where she had hidden fragments of the glowing ruins. His hand shook as he pulled one free, a shard that pulsed faintly with energy. The moment his skin touched it, heat surged into his veins, burning like fire and whispering promises. He gasped, his body trembling, his eyes wide. It was more than power, it was hunger. But the shard's glow flared too bright. The princess spun toward him in fury, her voice like thunder. "You dare steal from me?" Her words cut through the noise of battle, and for a heartbeat, even the beast seemed to pause. Harris turned too, his eyes narrowing at Mason. The truth was clear, the betrayal plain in the shard's burning light. Mason raised the weapon, desperation twisting his voice. "We don't need her. Harris, don't you see? With this, we can lead. With this, humanity can rise above crawling in the dust." But his words fell heavy in the air, poisoned by greed. The princess stepped forward, her presence fierce. "You think power is your salvation," she said coldly. "But power without honor is nothing but ruin." Before Mason could answer, a beast lunged at him from the dark. He fired wildly, the shard flaring, blasting the creature into ash. The power was real, undeniable, but so was the fear in his eyes. The humans saw him now not as a comrade, but as something else, someone willing to risk them all for his own desire. The battle raged until the last of the beasts fled, leaving broken bodies in the sand. The fire flickered weakly, painting their faces in shadows. Harris walked to Mason slowly, his rifle still in hand. Mason stood shaking, the shard burning in his grip, his face pale. "Put it down," Harris ordered, his voice firm but quiet. For a long moment, Mason's hand trembled, torn between desire and fear. Finally, Clara stepped forward, her eyes filled with pain. "Please, brother," she whispered, "don't lose yourself." And with a cry torn between rage and despair, Mason dropped the shard. It hit the sand with a hiss, its glow fading. The princess moved quickly, reclaiming it, her expression unreadable. She looked at Mason long and hard, then turned away, her words sharp. "One betrayal has already marked you," she said. "There will not be a second." The humans sat in silence as the desert night stretched around them. The beasts were gone, but something far more dangerous had taken root. The alliance had been broken, trust shattered. And though Mason still lived, the shadow of his betrayal would follow them into every step ahead. The night ended with silence, but it was not peace. The fire burned low, its smoke rising into the desert sky. The beasts had been defeated, but the wound inside the group was far worse. No one spoke to Mason, not even Clara, his own sister. He sat apart from them, his head bowed, his hands trembling. The shard of alien power was gone, back in the hands of the princess. yet its temptation still lingered in his eyes. Captain Harris stood watch at dawn, his jaw tight. He knew the journey ahead was no longer just survival. It was judgment. The desert had stripped them bare, shown their weaknesses, revealed the cracks between honor and desire. And now, the ruins called them onward, deeper into the canyon, where the trial would end. The princess walked at the front as the sun rose, her figure sharp against the golden light. Her silence weighed heavily on the group. She did not scold them, did not offer comfort. She only moved forward with purpose. At last, Clara dared to ask, "Where are you leading us?" The princess turned slightly, her glowing eyes unreadable. "To the heart of the desert," she said, "to the place where my people test kings and burn pretenders." The canyon twisted into darkness, the walls closing in like jaws. Symbols carved deep into the stone began to glow as they walked, answering the princess's presence. The humans felt the ground vibrate beneath their boots. Each step carried the weight of destiny, and when they emerged into the open, they found themselves standing before a vast temple carved into the cliffs. The entrance yawned like a mouth, ancient and waiting. "This is it," the princess whispered, her voice almost reverent. The final test. Inside, the temple swallowed them in cold silence. Torches ignited on their own as they passed, lighting the way down a long corridor. The walls shimmered with carvings of warriors kneeling, of rulers raising blades, of traitors consumed by fire. The air was heavy, pressing on their lungs. Every instinct told the humans they were not welcome here. Yet forward was the only path. They entered a chamber vast and circular, its ceiling lost in shadows. In the center stood a raised platform, surrounded by glowing marks on the floor. The princess stepped forward, her voice carrying across the chamber. "This place does not test strength," she said, "it tests truth." Harris narrowed his eyes. "Truth of what?" "Truth of who you are," she replied. "It will see into you, weigh your honor against your desire, and it will not be merciful." The ground shifted, the marks glowing brighter. The humans stumbled as the chamber changed, walls twisting, the air bending. Suddenly, each of them was alone, trapped in visions pulled from their minds. Harris found himself back on the battlefield, where he had once abandoned a wounded comrade to save the rest. The guilt he carried rose like fire, the voice of the fallen man echoing in his ears. Was survival honor, Harris, or was it cowardice? Clara stood in a vision of her childhood, seeing her brother Mason stealing to survive, protecting her but feeding his own greed too. Her voice shook as she whispered, "You can still choose better." But the vision of Mason only laughed. "Desire is stronger than honor," it said, and the words cut deep. And Mason himself saw the shard glowing before him again, brighter, stronger. The vision whispered promises, riches, power, immortality. He reached for it, trembling, torn between hunger and fear. The moment stretched like eternity. The princess faced her own trial. She stood before the throne of her people, the voices of her family accusing her. "You were too proud, too strong, you would not bend, so we cast you out." Her chest tightened with rage, but another voice whispered through the chamber. "Pride is not the same as honor. Exile is not the same as defeat." The visions tore at them, exposing wounds. And one by one, the humans fought back, not with weapons but with choices. Harris dropped his rifle in the vision and lifted his fallen comrade instead, refusing to leave him behind. Clara rejected the vision's laughter, standing firm in loyalty to her brother even as he stumbled. Mason, shaking, sweating, finally pulled his hand back from the shard, whispering, "I am more than my hunger." The princess lifted her head high, facing the shadows of her family. "You cast me out for pride," she said, "but pride is strength, and strength with honor is not weakness. It is truth." The chamber shook violently, the visions breaking, the humans and princess collapsing back onto the platform together. The glowing marks flared and the silence returned. They had passed the test, but the cost was written on their faces, tears, sweat, and shadows that would never leave their eyes. The princess looked at them, her voice softer than before. "You were judged as I was judged," she said, "and though you are flawed, the desert did not claim you." Her eyes lingered on Harris, then on Clara, and finally on Mason. "You are bound to me now, not by chains, but by choice." Harris lifted his head, his voice steady. "Then we finish this together." The temple doors rumbled, opening to the blinding light of day. The final test was over, but the true choice still lay ahead. Would honor guide them forward, or would desire rise again to tear them apart? The doors of the temple opened with a thunderous groan. Blinding sunlight spilled into the chamber, burning away the shadows. The humans shielded their eyes, their bodies still weak from the visions of the trial. The alien princess stood tall at the front, her silver hair lifted by the desert wind. For the first time since her exile, there was no fear in her eyes, only certainty. They stepped out together into the canyon. The air was different now, heavy as if the desert itself was watching, waiting, and waiting it was because across the sands, shapes were moving. Warriors of her people, armored and fierce, advancing in formation. Their banners of flame snapped in the wind, their weapons glowing with alien power. The princess froze, her lips tightening. "They came for me," she whispered, "to see if I lived or if I perished like the traitor they hoped I would be." The humans raised their rifles, unease flooding their faces. "How many?" Harris asked, his voice low. "Too many," the princess said, her gaze locked on the approaching army. "They will not let me live, and they will not let you leave." The warriors halted on the ridge, their leader stepping forward. He was massive, his armor gleaming gold, his voice like rolling thunder. "Exile," he called, his gaze fixed on the princess. "You survived the desert, but your trial means nothing. You are broken, unworthy, and you will die here." The princess's hands curled into fists. Her pride flared, but so did her honor. "No," she said, her voice sharp. "I endured the desert, I faced the trial, and I did not stand alone. These humans fought with me, bled with me, and they have proven honor greater than any throne." The alien leader laughed, his soldiers echoing the sound like a storm of mockery. "Humans," he spat, "they are vermin, scavengers, animals unworthy to stand in our shadow." But Harris stepped forward, his rifle in hand, his voice cutting through the air. "Maybe we are scavengers," he said. "Maybe we are small, fragile, and desperate. But when the desert tried to break us, we stood. When power tempted us, we chose honor. Can you say the same?" The alien leader sneered, lifting his blade. "Then prove it," he roared. The battlefield exploded into chaos. The warriors charged, their weapons clashing with gunfire, their blades ringing against steel. The humans fought in tight formation, covering one another, their movements sharp and practiced. Clara dragged Mason to cover when he stumbled. Harris's rifle barked again and again. The princess fought at their side, her body glowing with power drawn from the ruins, every strike sending shockwaves through the sand. The battle was brutal, but it was more than survival. It was a test, the last test. And as the dust rose, Mason found himself face to face with the alien leader. Fear shook his hands, but Clara's voice rang in his ears. "Choose honor," she had said. With trembling strength, Mason lifted his weapon, not to strike for power, but to shield his sister from a killing blow. The choice burned inside him, and in that moment, the guardian's words from the trial echoed, honor above desire. The princess saw it. Her exile had taught her pride, but these humans had taught her something more. She roared, her power flaring, and with one final strike, she shattered the alien leader's blade. The desert itself seemed to silence, the wind pausing in awe. The warriors froze, staring at their leader, brought to his knees by the one they had cast away. The princess stood over him, her blade of light raised. For a heartbeat, desire whispered, "End him, claim his place, take back the throne. But she lowered the weapon instead, her voice steady. No, I will not rule by fear. I will stand with those who chose honor when even my people would not. The human stood behind her, battered, bleeding, but unbroken. The alien warriors dropped their weapons, one by one, not in defeat, but in respect. For they had seen what their own kind had forgotten, that honor was not in bloodline or throne, but in the choices made in the desert of truth. The princess turned to Harris, Clara, and Mason, her voice softer now. You gave me water when you should have walked away. You stood by me when betrayal tore us apart. And in the end, you reminded me that pride is nothing without honor. Harris gave a tired smile, lowering his rifle. Then maybe we're not so different after all, he said. The desert wind rose again, carrying away the scent of blood and fire. The humans and the alien princess stood together, no longer strangers, no longer enemies, but bound by something greater. A story was born that day, carried by the wind. A story of how humanity, fragile and small, stood in the desert against power and pride, and proved that honor was stronger than desire.